Hello, dear viewers, thank you for deciding to join me today. I want to share with you a story about how a girl literally survived her death.
It happened in July, and it seemed like nothing unusual was foreshadowing trouble. The weather was wonderful, bright sun, clear sky, and a gentle breeze. I felt a surge of strength and energy and a list of plans for the day spinning in my head. Every day was filled with many activities, work, meetings, caring for loved ones. It was one of those periods in life when you feel that your productivity was at its peak and everything was going well. Every day was like a puzzle in which all the pieces fit perfectly. Everything was planned down to the smallest detail. I was completely focused on work and career, striving to achieve my goals. At the same time, I found time for my friends, trying to support them in difficult moments and be there when needed. We often organized get-togethers, shared news, and helped each other get through tough times. I was really confident that I had everything under control and could balance all aspects of my life. Every Saturday, I went grocery shopping. It was my usual ritual, a kind of tradition to stock up the fridge for the new week. By the end of the week, there was almost nothing left in the refrigerator, and going to the store was a necessity. I loved this process, choosing fresh fruits and vegetables, planning the menu for the week, buying the necessary products. All of this was part of my routine, giving me a sense of stability and confidence in the future. But that Saturday, everything was different. When I woke up in the morning, I felt a strange sensation. Something inside me told me not to go to the store. It was like a premonition, vague but very strong. I felt as if I somehow knew that I wouldn't need groceries that week. The feeling was so intense that I decided to trust it, even though I would never normally change my plans without a good reason. Instead of going to the store as usual, I simply ordered food delivery. At the time, it seemed like an insignificant decision, but as it later turned out, it was one of the most important decisions of my life. The entire day went by calmly. I did my usual things, worked on projects, watched movies, and even found time for a walk in the fresh air. Everything seemed so normal, and nothing foreshadowed trouble. The day was filled with a sense of peace and confidence, as if I had found the perfect balance between all areas of my life. But that night, everything changed drastically. Around 2 a.m, I suddenly woke up from an incredible pain in my abdomen. The sensation was so strong and unexpected that I could barely breathe. The pain pierced through me with such force that every movement became an unbearable trial. I had never experienced anything like this before. It wasn't just pain, it was an overwhelming sensation that completely took over my entire being. I tried to breathe, tried to understand what was happening, but every breath felt like a sharp stab of pain. At first, I tried to figure out what could have caused such pain. Maybe I had eaten something bad or caught some kind of virus. But the longer it went on, the more I realized that this was not just a random ailment. The pain was so intense that I couldn't even get out of bed to reach the bathroom. With great effort, crawling, I made my way to the bathroom. One thought echoed in my head: I need to do something, I need to somehow ease this pain. I turned on the cold water, hoping that the cold might somehow help, but nothing changed. I spent the rest of the night on the bathroom floor, trying to cope with the pain. I had a strong painkiller, which I took in the hope of some relief. The pill slightly dulled the sharpness of the pain but did not rid me of the suffering. It felt like the calm before the storm. The pain would subside for a few minutes and then return with renewed force. I tried to sleep, hoping that morning would bring relief, that the pain would go away on its own. I tried to convince myself that it was temporary and that it would pass. But nothing changed. In the morning, on Sunday, I realized that I could no longer bear it. The pain wouldn't go away, and I began to realize that something truly serious was happening to me. I felt fear creeping into my consciousness, fear for my life, fear that I couldn't handle this alone. Calling an ambulance was not an easy decision. I was afraid of what it might mean, that something was seriously wrong, and I couldn't handle it alone. I hesitated for a long time, hoping that the situation would improve on its own, that it was just a temporary ailment, and that I could handle it myself. It felt like a battle with myself. I didn't want to admit that I needed help. But when the pain became unbearable, when I realized that I couldn't even breathe normally, I understood that there was no choice. The doctors finally arrived around 3 in the afternoon. They examined me, asked many questions, and eventually suggested 3 possible diagnoses. But I didn't care about the diagnoses, I just wanted the pain to stop. I needed to go to the hospital for further examination. Of course, spending Sunday in the hospital was the last thing I planned. But there was no other way. They took me to one hospital, but they refused to accept my case. It was incredibly disappointing. I lay on the stretcher, feeling pain and helplessness. The doctors simply said they couldn't help. This feeling of helplessness, when you are entirely dependent on someone else's decision, was unbearable. Then we went to another hospital, and the situation repeated. Only in the 3rd hospital did they finally accept me and begin conducting examinations. By that time, I was completely exhausted, both physically and mentally. I couldn't stand on my feet, my body was literally giving up. All I wanted was for the pain to go away, so I could at least take a breath without suffering. The doctors were trying to figure out what was happening, but it wasn't easy. They faced challenges in diagnosing my condition, and their uncertainty was evident. They examined me again and again, conducted various tests, but no one could make an accurate diagnosis. I remember how the doctors discussed my symptoms, how they exchanged opinions, but no one could understand what was wrong with me. In the surgical department, one of the doctors examined me, pressed on the most painful spot, and I doubled over in sharp pain. He decided to refer me to gynecologists, assuming the problem might be related to the reproductive system. The gynecologists examined me for a long time, did an ultrasound, but couldn't find the cause of the pain. I saw their confusion, saw them exchange glances, not knowing what to do next. It was frightening to realize that even the doctors didn't know how to help you. In the end, they decided to treat me conservatively. They put me on IVs at night, administered painkillers, and monitored my condition. Each dose of medication provided a small respite, but the pain didn't go away completely. It seemed to be hiding somewhere inside, waiting for the moment to overwhelm me again. In the morning, the doctors were supposed to decide on further actions. They took me to the ward, and I was left alone. At the moment when they started the 4, I had a strange sensation. I suddenly felt that the countdown had begun. It was a very clear feeling that my time was running out, that I had very little left. It was like an inner voice telling me, time is running out, and you can't wait any longer. I had never experienced anything like this before. It was like an inner signal that my body could no longer cope. The doctors continued to come up to me, examine me, check my vital signs, but nothing changed. The pain was becoming unbearable, and my condition was worsening by the minute. One of the last doctors who approached me pressed on my abdomen again and said, "Now everything is clear." Gathering all my strength, I grabbed his hand and said, "If you don't do something today, I won't be here tomorrow." These were words of despair, words I said because I understood there was no more time. He looked me in the eyes, and I saw a look of understanding in his gaze. He realized how serious the situation was and that there was no time to waste. The doctor gave me 15 minutes to prepare for surgery. During that time, emotions flooded through me, fear, exhaustion, and hope all mixed together. They took me to the operating room. I remember how cold it was in that room, a cold that pierced me to the bone. I lay on the operating table, feeling myself slowly losing consciousness. The room was cold, and the sterile smell filled my senses, adding to my fear. They began administering anesthesia, and just as I was about to fall asleep, I heard the doctors discussing whether I had signed the documents regarding a possible fatal outcome. It turned out that I hadn't, and none of my family had been informed about the surgery. At that moment, I realized how serious everything was. The doctor said there were 2 possible outcomes: either I would lose the ability to have children, or there would be an even worse scenario. When the surgery was over, the doctors couldn't wake me up immediately. At the moment when they tried to bring me out of anesthesia, I couldn't take my first breath. It was a terrifying feeling. I began to see everything happening as if from the outside. It seemed like my soul had left my body, and I was observing everything from above. I saw the doctors rushing around me, trying to bring me back to life. I saw their faces, full of tension and concentration. These were moments when I felt like I was on the edge between life and death. At some point, I found myself in a dark tunnel, similar to a pipe, with a bright light at the end. It felt like I was being pulled somewhere, an invisible force guiding me forward, and I couldn't resist this movement. I felt that the light at the end of the tunnel was my real home. There was peace, tranquility, and understanding, something I lacked so much in real life. It was a place where I felt protected, where there was no pain or suffering. But suddenly, I heard a commanding male voice that asked me, "Where are you going?" This voice was full of strength and authority. It made me stop. I replied, "Home." But the voice said that my home was now where I had come from and that I needed to return. I resisted. I didn't want to return, for it was so peaceful and easy in that light. I was tired of the pain, the confusion, the struggle. I wanted to stay where it was warm and bright. But the voice reminded me of my family, my mom, my sister, my nephew. He spoke of how much pain they would feel if I left. He reminded me of those who loved me, of those who were waiting for me. And that was the only reason why I began to think about returning. I knew that if I left, I would leave behind a lot of pain and sorrow. But even knowing this, I still didn't want to return. I was tired, I wanted peace. Then I made a condition. I told the voice, if I return, I must never experience such physical pain again. The voice agreed, and at that moment, I felt myself being brought back. It was like a sharp return to reality, as if I were pushed out of that peaceful place back into this world. I took my first breath. It was like being born again. The doctors placed an oxygen mask on my face, and I began to breathe. That was the moment when I realized that I had returned, that I had been given a second chance. The surgery didn't go smoothly, and a long road to recovery awaited me, filled with physical therapy, pain, and small victories. I spent another 3 weeks in the hospital. Every day was a challenge: physical weakness, pain, exhaustion. Those were weeks when I had to learn to walk again, when every step was a victory over myself. Then, when I was discharged, I continued to undergo procedures for another month and a half. The doctors wanted to perform another surgery, but the chief surgeon, seeing my condition, decided that I wouldn't withstand it. He made the decision to cancel the surgery, and I was grateful to him for that. That surgery remained only on paper, as a plan that was never carried out. After everything that happened, I couldn't understand for a long time why I had to go through all of this. Why did fate throw me into such a difficult situation? Why did I have to experience so much pain and suffering? But after 9 months, I came to understanding and acceptance. Reflecting on the journey, I realized the purpose behind my struggles, which gave me a sense of peace. I realized that this experience was necessary for me to reevaluate my life. It showed me how fragile our life is and how important it is to cherish every moment. I started a new chapter, understanding that every moment is a gift to be cherished. Now, I try to live in harmony with myself and the world around me, no longer chasing after things that don't bring real happiness. If you've listened to my story to the end, please leave your response. This will help me understand whether it was useful and interesting for you. If you have similar stories, please share them. It may be important and helpful for many people going through difficult times. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all health, happiness, and a good day.